Live. We are live. Are we live? Yes, we're live. Good afternoon, everyone. What's going on? My name is Harith Iskander. Welcome to everyone who is on time, 2:40 p.m. Malaysian GMT time. This is the Job Street Career Fair, and we are virtual this afternoon, right here live from Kuala Lumpur. You could be watching this live, or you could be watching this after the fact. And you could be watching this from wherever you are in the world. So just a couple of ground rules, couple of house rules. I encourage everyone to get busy in the chat. I'll be watching you on the YouTube chat as well. We're going to be taking questions from the audience. We're going to be taking your suggestions. We're going to be taking anything that you want to know. Please let us know in the chat on YouTube, because this afternoon is all about you. And if you are in the job hunt, if you are in the path of looking for a job or a career or a new career or taking your career elsewhere, and you are worried about the potential landmine that is the interview segment for the person or persons that you are interviewing with, this is the place to be, because right now, this afternoon, right here, we are going to be talking to an expert, shall I say, someone who knows what she's talking about, someone who has vast years of experience. In fact, I'm going to just read straight off the CV because I don't want to get anything wrong. She's a founder, HR consultant, performance and career coach. She's got an MBA and honors. She's a catalyst coach with work motivation certified coach, positive intelligent coach. She's a points of trained facilitator. She's a certified trainer professional. She's all that and more. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that the person I'm about to introduce right now knows what she's talking about. So you guys need to listen in, and if you need some information, you need some knowledge, she is going to be more than welcome and more than happy to help you out. So welcome, Shereen Kaur. How are you?
Thank you, Harith, for that beautiful introduction. I'm so honored to be here today, this afternoon. And we really hope that, this 1 hour session will be fun, exciting, and provide all our job seekers and also any viewers out there with some interesting points for them to consider and hopefully land them their dream job.
Exactly, because and for many people, it is the starting point, especially if it is your first job. It is potentially the starting point of the rest of your life, but it's definitely not the ending point. So I think a lot of people, correct me if I'm wrong, get nervous, get stuck, get the butterflies interrupting with their tummy when it comes to interviews and being interviewed. Before we get into the tough questions that we're going to be handling right now, what is your general advice to someone who may be nervous, may be wondering, how do I get it right? How do I nail it? What is the general advice you give to people who are facing job interviews?
Oh, that's a great question, right? To get the ball rolling. I have 3 main tips for all job seekers. Mm-hmm. Preparation, preparation.
Oh, so let me get that straight. That's preparation followed by preparation and more preparation. Wow. Sounds like I'm back in school. What do you mean by preparation,
yes,
preparation,
but there's no
preparation?
Exam. Well, it starts with actually your CV, right? So when you are applying for a job, making sure your CV is not generic, and sent to the masses. You want to make sure your CV is customized, right to the job details that you are applying for, right? It could be you are that one person with a similar experience, similar achievement, but you want to cater it so that it can match with the job that you are applying for.
Oh, next. So sorry, are you saying that you would encourage people to have or edit their CVs as per job application? So don't just send out the same one CV, copy paste to everyone. You're saying adapt?
Yes, correct. Because you want to make sure you use the right lingo or jargons that is related to the industry. You could be an engineer applying for a position in either oil and gas or even in manufacturing for food and beverages. So they will have different nuances in their industry that you should be able to match based on your experience. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because if I was in the job market right now, I would actually think naturally it's a copy and paste situation. But very, very, very good advice. All right, let's get into the tough questions. Now, just a little bit of background. I have been on job interviews when I first started. So I do remember it was always a little bit scary and the potential of questions that trip you up. Now, just as a guide, do most employers or job interviewers are they out to trip you up in any way? In general, is that part of the game?
No, actually, they have their own KPIs, right? Or their own performance in which they have to be able to hire the right guy for the right job, okay? The tricky part is, they are normally recruiters and HR and organizations tend to be overwhelmed with the number of applications. So it's, it can be quite difficult for them to filter and to find a match just based on a piece of paper, right? And that's where, they call you for an interview. And interesting fact is, right, 33% of recruiters actually make the perceived decision to hire you within the first 90 seconds of meeting you.
That is interesting. So this is, you're saying statistically, the decision potentially could be made in the first 90 seconds. Based on what? What can the first 90 seconds show you?
So, they have your CV already, right? So when you stroll in the door or, when you stroll into a Zoom or virtual session, right, they are already assessing, your energy, the way you greet them, your technical connections, right? And whether the chemistry is there as well. So they are already assessing you based on first impressions.
Oh, so a quick tip, if I'm to go into a job interview or a virtual interview, just sort of walk in and go, hey, everybody, what's up? What's going on? Yeah, I am ready. I am so pumped for this job. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Just hit them in the first 15 seconds and they'll be like, oh, okay, this guy's too much energy for me.
Yeah, you got to match the energy, right? If you're applying for the hospitality industry, then, you would be hired right on the spot. But if you're working for an audit firm, it'll be more challenging.
Okay, I get it. So they'll be like, yeah, you want to be a comedian. I get it. Okay, cool. But okay, no, good. I think that's a very valuable tip to take away, to keep in mind that your first 90 seconds could make or break the rest of however long you spend there. So match the energy. I think if anybody is out there taking notes, I think match the energy is a great note to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
But don't worry, actually, because normally around 50% of organizations will put you through at least 3 interview stages. So you have at least 3 chances before you really strike out.
Oh, really? 3?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to sound like a little bit of a Dumbo right here, but so you mean potentially that is quite common to be called back second time, third time before a decision is made.
Yes.
So just give me an example of what would be different in the second interview, and after that would be why a third interview? Why would it take 3 interviews? Just so that we can all understand.
All right, sure. Typically, the first interview is normally with HR or the recruiter or the headhunter, right? So they are normally assessing very baselines, whether you have top line job fit, your credentials, your achievement, etc. And typically, the second interview is when you are meeting the hiring manager, which is your future boss, right, or your future supervisor. And that's where they work on how would you fit with the team. Looking at your potential, looking at the achievements and what sort of contribution you can bring into the team almost immediately, right?
Okay.
And in some organizations, depends how higher up the corporate ladder you get to, you will meet the boss of the boss, right? Is either the head of the department, the functional head, or even the CEO or the managing director. So at that level, typically the interview is looking at long-term goals with you, looking at would you be potentially, suitable for maybe a career in that organization 5 to 10 years, and maybe, the next GM as well.
Oh, okay. So Rome was not built in a day. Sometimes it can take 3 days, I guess.
Yes.
Let's get into the tough interview questions. Now, I've been given a list of an example of tough questions, and we'd definitely like to hear from you, an expert on number one, why are these kind of questions asked, and then what is the best strategy to answer these questions? Now, the first tough question that commonly gets asked is apparently sometimes some interviewers will ask you, about your parents and how old they are. And basically, I think what the interview would be digging for is to find out whether you are going to be constantly taking leave to, take mommy or grandma or grandpa to the hospital. So, so does this happen? They would say, hey, how are your parents doing? How old are they? Is this a common tough question?
It's not common, right? But it is also, I've heard companies ask about these questions to candidates before, right? It is a very sensitive question to ask both ways, right? Because end of the day, in some countries, questions like this can be deemed illegal, right? Yeah.
Hold on. Let's put a pin in it there. So you're saying that this type of question, when the interviewer delves into your personal, i.e., private life, in some countries, this is not allowed, or this is actually illegal?
Yeah. So it's some countries not allowed, and some countries you could actually file a complaint.
Ooh, but not in Malaysia.
Correct. In Malaysia, it's generally not encouraged, okay? And if an organization asks these questions, there are normally several reasons, right? One could be the hiring manager themselves, right? Or the person who is interviewing you could have had some challenges in the past regarding this particular scenario. So, sometimes recency effect, and they're just wanting to make sure that when you join the organization, everything can be smooth sailing for you, or they are trying to anticipate some hard projects that could be coming up that could be a little bit stressful for you. However, this type of questions I highly discourage because it could lead to stereotyping and discrimination, and you could run the risk of losing really good talents.
Okay, so let's say you are given this type of question.
Okay.
Is honesty often the best policy, or how would you recommend a person tackle this type of question?
Okay, all right. Okay, the question tackle, right? So as a candidate, I would definitely clarify the question very politely back to the recruiter or the interviewer, and, really to understand where the angle that the person is asking coming from, right? And I would discuss my approach and explain very openly and honestly to say that, hey, you know what? At work, I am giving my 100% commitment, and I will ensure all the completion of my priorities before any leave or vacation time, right? And similarly, I would also expect that the organization would also respect my non-working time as well, right? But you know what? Sometimes emergency situations happen, right? So people fall sick, sometimes, you have to be away, etc. And what you want to do is to assure the organization or your interviewer to say that if in case in any emergency situation, you would prior discuss the situation with your manager on a suitable arrangement rather than leaving the job or leaving the task or even your manager high and dry. So what I would advocate is really look at your approach of answering this question. The interviewer is not looking for the right answer. They just want to know what is your principle and your values when you are faced in that kind of situation.
So what I'm hearing is, and my takeaway from what you just said is, there is no actual right answer. This is not a maths question. It's not a right or wrong. And the interviewer is just basically trying to get a sense of who you are.
Yeah. Correct. Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Fair enough. Let's move on to this question, which is noted as, it looks easy, but apparently it's quite hard to answer. When they ask, what's something that you didn't like from your last job? Now, why is this considered a hard question or a question that looks easy but is actually hard?
Okay. So one is, sometimes recruiters and organizations want to know your working style, or is there any nuances that you accept or you don't accept, right? So what I would encourage candidates is to position these points not as head-on conflicts, but you want to look at it from improvement points, right? So if there was something that you didn't like, you want to share from your experience what you did differently and how did you manage that situation, and what were some key learnings that you took away from that situation so that you have become a better professional in your field.
So basically, if someone asked me what you didn't like about your last job, and I went, my boss, but I would then add on, but you, my friend who is talking to me, look like a wonderful boss, and I'm sure I will not have the same problems.
Not too directly. Okay?
Really? Oh, I guess that's why I'm not going for...
You can position it, for instance, right? You give a situation, and I normally advocate this stare method, right? Not staring you in the eyes, but stare, meaning you give a situation, S for situation, T for your thoughts, action, results, and effects, all right? So you give a stare method type of answer in which you say, oh, one situation that happened in the past project, and then you elaborate a little bit, which shares your thoughts. And my thought on it was, it was challenging for me because I had my views on it, and, other people in the team and even my manager had different views on it. So then what was the action that came out from it, right? So you can say, oh, we had a discussion and we put down our pros and cons. We went into several brainstorming sessions and we came to a win-win situation. And from that, from that discussion, what was the result? So from the result of me having a different opinion, we managed to maybe, improve our customer relationship by 20%, 10%. And I learned that even though I have different opinion than everyone else, I should share my opinion, find a midway point or collaborative points with other people as well. So you use a stare method to elaborate those type of questions.
Okay, so to anybody who's watching this YouTube segment, you need to rewind over that and get all those points, and don't just end up going,
yeah,
Shereen told me to stare, so I'm just staring at you. That will probably get you thrown out the door pretty quick. Let's talk about, before this, we were just having a short discussion, questions on integrity, because I know this is a question that I would definitely ask if I was interviewing someone. When the interviewer asks you or gives you a hypothetical situation, let's say you found a colleague doing something wrong or against company policy and all, and I'm sure this is a pretty common question when the interviewer gets asked, how do you act in a certain situation which your integrity is called upon? This would be well, to me, I would say honesty is the best policy, or just lie and say that you'll report them. I mean, how would you tackle this kind of thing?
I think here, the interviewer and the organization is looking whether your own personal values matches with the organization's ethical and company values as well, right? So that's where they want to give you hypothetical questions to see your train of thoughts there. Right. So that's where your preparation comes in, right? When you go for an interview with a particular organization, you want to understand what are the company values in the organization and see if they match with yours. Yeah. So.
Well, here's a question, and let's just jump into this.
Okay.
What if for whatever purpose the company's values or yours didn't match, but you wanted the job? Would you be politically correct? I mean, what's your honest opinion on that?
Okay, so if you look at generally company values, right, they will have between 3 to 5 company values. And out of that, there will be definitely at least 1, 2, or 3 that mirrors or nearly the same as your values, right? And there will be one or two that could be conflicting. So it really depends on, how well you are able to adjust to those values. But in my experience, normally when there is a disconnect with the values, even you get the job, you will not stay very long in that job.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so you got to look long term, right? And whether you will enjoy going to work every day, working with those type of values as well.
Which reminds me of a saying that if you enjoy what you do, you actually don't work a day in your life, because you don't look at it as, I got to go to work. You look at it as, hey, I get to wake up and go and do something I enjoy.
Yes, correct.
Okay. I have heard, and I know you've mentioned this previously, that sometimes interviewers, and I don't know anybody out there, if you're watching, if you've had a job experience, interview experience, and you want to share it, or you have an idea about a question you want to ask, please add it into the comments section, the question section, and we'll do our very best to get back to you. Because I heard sometimes some interviewers throw in completely hypothetical questions. And the example given to me was like, how many coins would it take to stack up to reach the height of the KL Twin Towers? So do interviewers throw out these completely off the wall, off the chart hypothetical questions? And if so, why?
Yeah, so sometimes the hypothetical question is back to the point of looking at your train of thoughts, right? The coin question could be one, or they could even tell you, give you a business scenario, right? So say for instance, right, the market is crashing and, you have to look at your P&L. Where would you do your cost-cutting measures, right? So it could be things like that as well. And what the interviewer is looking at is how do you come to a conclusion, or how do you draw up your final answers, right? So whether it's wrong or right, it's not, it doesn't really matter, but they want to see how you think about it. So back to the coin question, right? You would probably answer, okay, let's look at the, the diameter or the thickness of the coin, and the height of twin towers, and looking at the wind conditions and stackability rates, things like that, before you come to a conclusion to say maybe 2.7 million coins is needed, right? So that's how they want to get you to think about things and to see whether you just tembak only, right? Give a guess only, or are you figuring things out?
Well, my question is, did you just tembak 2.7 million?
Yes. My maths is very poor, so I'm not sure.
Let me give you an anecdote, and this is a true story. And it's not hypothetical. It actually happened. I know a friend of mine who's interviewing someone a graduate from a university, and literally just threw out all the books and just said to this person, listen, if you were my PA or working with me, and I had an important meeting at 8 o'clock and I was not there, what would you do? And it was just literally that. You're my PA, 8 o'clock meeting, I'm not there. What do you do? And basically, my friend, the interviewer, was once again just looking for his train of thought. What would you do? Which actually lands in the common sense section, because there's no right answer. There's a multitude of answers. Now, let's say your advice to those who are watching, who are faced with these kind of questions, which they are caught unaware of. How do you handle them? What is the best strategy?
All right. So the best strategy is first take a pause, stay calm, don't jump straight into the question, right? Collect your thoughts And if you have some clarifying thoughts, right, you can also ask the interviewer first, right? So you can say, hey, Mr. Interviewer, before I jump into an answer, can I just check whether one, were you expected in that meeting and the appointment was already made, right? And secondly, maybe, you know, any other question that came to mind, you know, whether, you know, you as the PA, you were physically there or not, right? So you can use some questions to clarify, and then you can jump into and answer the question. But yes, you are right, right? The interviewer is just checking in to see what would you do, what's your train of thoughts, and how would you react to it.
And just as a bookend to that story, what my friend told me that he found quite, you know, quite sad was that most people, although they, you know, passed with flying colors from the university and, you know, they're in the top league, are unable to answer that question because it's not in the book. The answer is not in the book. And they're so used to just having answers, question, answer in a book when it, you know, common sense, right?
Yeah, correct.
It's
and that's where
something that
preparation comes in, right?
Preparation.
You can always practice your interview with a friend or, you know, with anyone else, just to get a sense of what could probably people ask you.
Good advice. We have a question from a viewer on YouTube. Michelle asks, expanding on the integrity question, what if the interviewer asks you a situational question whereby it's your superior and not just any colleague asking you to do something potentially unethical? Bam, bam, bam. Yo, my heart is already beating because I'm not even being asked that question, but I'll be like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Yeah. Very good question, actually.
Yeah.
What if it's, how would you handle that?
Okay, all right, great. So take a breather first, right? Because one, when you are researching your organization that you're going to, for the interview, you would bump into some of their ethical principles, right? Or the company values and principles. And in many organizations today, they have a speak up policy, right? Or a policy or a whistleblower policy. Right. So in view of that, right, there will be certain channels that you can raise such unethical situations, right? And then it boils down to your own values, right? Which is more important, your job or your own values?
Okay. So, yeah, it's tricky waters, but yeah, at the end of the day, I think you need to just make a stand, you know, stick on your own values as well.
Yes,
whatever those values may be. What about those people who, and this I've met many who tend to have had many different jobs or careers over a relatively short span of time, and the interviewer sees, you know, this on the resume, and then, you know, basically straight up asks, you know, you've been job hopping, or do you think it's okay to job hop? Because obviously, as an interviewer, I'm trying to work out, are you going to stay with us longer than 3 months? What would your advice be to someone who questions a particular point directly from your CV?
All right. That's a great one, right? Coming from a HR experience, of course, you want whoever you hire to stay on forever, because end of the day, you don't have to rehire for that job again, right? So your job is scouting already. However, in today's day and age, right, traditionally job hopping used to be frowned upon. But let's look at some key statistics today, right? Gallup, which is a research company that does employee research, states that 21% of millennials job hop. Okay. And, you know, the average time that people stay in a job by generation is also very different, right? Gen Z, who are below 24, 25 years old, they stay averagely in a job about 2 years, millennials about 3 years, Gen X about 5 years, and baby boomers 8 years and more. So, so if you're a baby boomer, you may say job hopping every 5 years, you are job hopping, okay? But, you know, with today's generation, I think job hopping is pretty common, but I would look at the motivation, the reasons, and the various experiences for the job hopping, right? So what I would encourage job seekers to explain is to look at why did you move jobs also, right? It could be for many reasons, right? And you can always explain in a very good manner, share with them the gratitude that you had in certain jobs, what was the experience like, and why did you move on, right? Yeah, so organizations want to look for signs of instability, signs of low motivation, and signs of inability to contribute or work with others or adaptation. But if your reasons for moving are valid, normally it is looked over, and they always focus on talents versus tenure.
There you go. Talent versus tenure. And yeah, at the end of the day, I think every individual has individual reasons for why they may have left at any stage. We've got another question.
Maybe can I just wrap up that? Because I think job hopping is quite a common question that people also always look at, right? What I would also advise job seekers is to turn it into their advantage, because you want to showcase you didn't just move from one job to another because you were, high maintenance, right? Or you didn't like somebody in the organization. But was there an experience that you learned from it? Was there newfound skills? Was there discovery of a new motivation for yourself to move on, right? So you want to turn it into an advantage for you.
Well, if any interviewee was going through the process you just described, like, how could you not get the job? Because you sound like you really have explored every angles, and any employer is looking for someone with that kind of vision.
Yes.
Okay. Another question from YouTube. Prinunita asks if she says, if I am not passionate with her current current job, and she recognizes that it's not the company to grow for her and to expand her passion, should she stay or should she move on? Should she stay or should she go?
Yeah, okay, tricky one. Sometimes we have jobs, right? You love what you do, right? You love your function, you love your team, you love your boss, right? And also you are looking at the industry that you work, etc. You're super passionate about everything. But however, the company has its limitations for whatever reasons, right? It could be they don't have positions for you, or the company is very lean, or the way they work is very different, that doesn't allow you to grow to that next level, and no space for expansion. So I would encourage you, first things first, is to discuss internally with your manager, with HR, what are some possible options available, right? And this may not happen overnight, let me warn you, right? It cannot be today you had that conversation, tomorrow the organization changes to fit your passion. So these discussions can take time, so you got to be patient, put in some clear timelines when you can follow up with such discussions. And at the end of it, if truly there is no more room for growth, it's a call that you have to take, right? Because you could be very comfortable where you are, and maybe, you say, okay, you know what, I will find other ways to grow. Maybe I will work on projects outside the organization. I will work on things on the weekend, on a side hustle that I could grow my skills in, while remaining committed to the current job. Or maybe it's time to move on. Yeah.
Following up on that question and that answer, what are your thoughts on going for job interviews while you are already in a job? Should you be, I suppose it's unavoidable to be upfront about it, but I guess then you are confronted with having to answer, why do you want to leave the current job you're at? So this can be tricky sometimes, right?
Yes, correct. So that's always, normally in my experience, people have reached that stage where they are already looking for a job, and they are still the current job, right? And typically it's either a pull factor, that means, you know, the new job looks more interesting, there's a lot of room for growth, etc. Or the current job is pushing you out the door, right? It no longer fits your life goals, it no longer is motivating you, and, you know, maybe there are many challenges there. So you want to make sure that before you go for that next job interview is to check in whether it is a good fit for you, right? And you want to be able to see that if I move on, I will be able, one, to grow to the next level. Secondly, is something different that I'm experiencing or expanding my knowledge on, or even how can I contribute to that company to bring them to higher levels, you know, and expand market share or things like that. So do take some time to think about the answer to this question, but you don't have to provide too much details like, you know, oh, my manager, you know, is like that, or, you know, the company's direction is that like this, and it doesn't fit with my life goal of owning a Ferrari before 30, you know, so things like that. You don't have to go into details, but you want to give a good thought into how would you answer this question. And it's a common question.
I'm sure it is. Listen, the government just recently announced April 1st, borders will be open. I think a lot of people are looking forward to, you know, traveling after 2 years. So we have a question here. How would you answer to an interviewer when they ask, so, you know, what travel plans have you made when the borders are open? Will you be able to work? Or are you willing to bring your laptop for urgent work matters? So I think the underlying suggestion here, the underlying question here is the employee is asking, are you willing to work on your off day? So yeah, this sounds like a pretty real situation. And I think there are many ways of asking this. How, as a coach, what would you recommend the answer be, the response?
It's a pretty tricky one too, and it boils back to or refers back to the first question that we answered about the parents, right? So it is quite similar nuances there, where you want to let the interviewer know that before you take that trip, right, what would your approach be? Yeah, you know, you make sure everything is done perfectly well. You know, you have given your next in line all the information that is needed, and you could anticipate some of the things that could happen as well, right? Before you actually leave for vacation. And my challenge is, right, to the recruiter who is asking this, if really this is the company culture, then you as the job seeker may want to ask a few more questions to clarify whether it meets with your own life culture as well.
Fair enough. Just because you're going for a job interview does not necessarily mean that company is the best for you. There may be reasons that you shouldn't get the job or shouldn't take the job. Keep that in mind.
Yes, and it's a discussion, right? While the interviewer is assessing you, you should also be assessing the company that you are interviewing with.
It's like a first date. Yeah, you know, you're like, well, this person's checking you out, you're checking that person out as well.
Yes, correct.
We've got a question here which is slightly out of the realm that we're talking about, but I think it's worth responding to this question because I myself would like to know. So a viewer, Wailing, says, I recently got terminated and had only worked with the company for 4 months, but apparently it's an unfair dismissal. How should I deal with this and share this with future employees? So are you equipped to answer this question in terms of unfair dismissal, etc., after 4 months?
Yeah, so generally you could be unemployed due to many reasons, right? And to me, it's always good to be open and truthful with your future employer. Yet, you know, you want to say what you have learned in that 4 months and how would you use that experience to be able to craft your next steps in your career, right? Perhaps it was a chance or an opportunity for you to try something new. And unfortunately, things didn't work out for you. So you could share things like that, but the interviewer may ask for more details there. So be prepared to look at what levels you are willing to share. Okay. Yeah.
No, sorry. I think, yeah, that is a very good answer. I think this listener or this viewer is also asking, is it considered unfair termination after working for 4 months only that she's let go? I think there are a lot of factors which go into that. Has she signed what's the word when you get a permanent?
Yes, the confirmation letter, your letter of employment. Look at the terms and condition, and there could be many reasons for that, for non-confirmation or even unfair dismissal, or those type of cases. So please get some legal advice there so that you can be on the right track.
Okay, good advice there. Victoria Lee asks, how do I explain in an interview if my reason for leaving is because my manager is micromanaging my work and is not aligned with my working style? So, someone says, "Hey, how was your last boss? Why did you leave your last boss?" Do you out and out say, "Yeah, they were micromanaging my work, it's not aligned with my working style," or what would be the best tact or situation, how to answer to this situation?
Okay, cool one. So, there is a age-old saying or a quote, right? People join organizations and they leave managers or bosses.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Boom.
So, or even
Mic drop.
leaders, right? So it's a fact, right? It's a fact for many reasons of leaving as well. But what the interviewer is looking for is not really the reasons. They want to check into your professionalism, whether you would badmouth your previous organization. So if you do that, that means the current organization will also be at risk. And this is where it will impact employer branding and your own image as a professional.
Yes, I can speak from experience when interviewing someone for position. It always shines better, the light shines better when that person says, I'd rather not speak badly or say anything about my previous employer because that was, the past, or that was a personal experience I had. And, because you're exactly right, because in the back of my head, I'm thinking, well, if he talks bad about that person, he's going to talk bad about me.
Yeah, correct.
Makes sense.
Correct.
Okay, Siva Shankar is asking, Siva loves his current position and his department performance is good, but overall company performance is going down due to improper process flow. Should I stay or switch to another company? A lot of people are seeking advice on whether they should stay or go. Once again, you're the HR queen. What would your advice be?
It's pretty difficult to say yes or no clear cut, right? Because there are so many areas of gray here. Just as I mentioned previously as well, right? You could be loving everything about your job, but maybe the industry is not suitable, right? It could be something of a boom and bust industry, or, something is happening with certain things within the organization that is not within the control of the organization or even your control, right? So you got to see and wait and see, or monitor and see where is it going. Typically, organizations would have a lot of forums, platforms to share companies' vision, companies' growth on an annual basis or 6-monthly basis. And that's where you can look at the growth of the organization, right? And that's where you make your call. Am I in for the next 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, looking at the 5-year plan of the organization, or is the grass greener outside?
Okay, a thought just popped into my head. When is the right time, or what is the right way to handle the question of salary or remuneration if it's not already on the table? Is it appropriate? Is it accepted? And is it the right thing to do to say, this is how much I'm asking for? Or do you, and what is the right point? First interview, later on? What is your opinion about this?
Okay. So typically when the job is a position, or, when the recruiter calls you, they would already give you a range of the salary, right, that is related to the job. Normally, right, the discussion will happen either in the second stage or the final stages, in which they will look at your what is the value you can bring, because you want to be able to showcase your value as much as possible before going into a negotiation. So if you imagine, if you ask about the salary in your first interview, right, the HR or the recruiter is only knowing the top line or very surface value of yourself. They have not seen you in your full capacity. And then in the second interview, it goes deeper. And in the final interview, the managing director says, okay, name me your price, right? So you should leverage on the opportunity of building your value, because the salary is a reflection of your value of contribution to the organization. And in a way, also the branding of yourself, right? You carry a handbag for all your personal belongings whenever you go out, right? But the value of your handbag, it really depends on how much you are carrying as well, right?
True.
So you want to be able to use the opportunity to brand yourself, create that value before going into your dollars and cents.
Brand yourself and create that value. I'm going to ask a question and go back to that. I just want to jump into Xiao Hui's question. What do I say if I am asked, why should I hire you? And how do I not come off sounding too arrogant?
Ooh, that's a good one, right? So typically this question is towards the tail end of the interview, because they've asked you, or they've checked in with your skills, they've checked in with your talents and experiences, and what they are looking for is just that X factor on why you want to also work in that organization, right? So check in with the job brief, right? And match what you are saying with the job brief as well. Because, imagine an interviewer, right? They are, in a day, they could be interviewing for 6 to 7 hours, and they could be meeting, right, 5 to 7 candidates the whole day, right? And how much can they retain, right? So you want to be able to make that interview easy for them to remember as well, okay? So without trying to sound arrogant, you want to look at an answer that talks about your passion, maybe in the role, maybe in the industry, cite the brand and say, I noticed brand X is growing, and I am really looking for the opportunity to work with a company that has integrity, use the company values in it, and match it with what you want from the job as well, right?
Fair enough. And I also truly, I would say, don't be afraid. Don't assume that it's arrogance when you are talking about how valuable you are. Sometimes,
correct,
you just need to acknowledge yourself in that case.
And I would put in a little twist to that, whereby as the job seeker, once you've done explaining yourself, you can check in with the organization or the interviewer and say, may I ask you, how do you find me fit into the role and the organization as well, right? Because, I would love to hear more from you, right? So that's to also manage the expectations from both sides.
Yeah, makes sense. Once again, it's like a first date. A lot of people see certain jobs or certain careers as stepping stones. So, hey, I think I'll go work here for 2 years, get this experience, and then go there for 2 years and get that experience to reach my ultimate goal. Now, do you be honest about this when someone says, oh, why do you want this job? Do you actually say, listen, this is a great company for the 2 years because after that, I'm going to go here. Now, and on one side, it's, okay, this guy's got ambition and that's great. But on the other side, it's like, oh, this guy's going to leave me in 2 years. So how do you handle, being honest as well as, wearing your heart on your sleeve and what would your suggestion be to that?
Okay, all right.
Should you be honest?
Yeah, I think there is a lot of room for opportunity there, right? Because when you are moving into a job, it is an opportunity for you to work in a certain realm or a certain function or a certain industry and to build the skills that is needed so that it can move you to bigger things, right? To bigger responsibilities, etc. And that's where the organization will need to be able to have structures and career paths for you to retain you and keep your talent within the organization so that you can continue to contribute in long term. Right? So when you share your intention of growing, normally it should be aligned to how much you know of the organization already, right? So if it's a marketing role and you know this organization is big on marketing, you know your career paths there as well. So, that's where the discussion will happen, and you can elaborate and you can express your ambitions as well. Maybe the organization will not be able to support you, or maybe even they may not have the position today, but knowing your ambition, and you can say that, I could be the next, say for instance, director in this function, even though that position may not be in existence today.
Yeah, good. Fair enough. Good question here from Fidza, who asks, would you, or what do you say as the interviewee when you were asked about your flaws and cons? So I can just imagine someone saying, tell me what's wrong with you. In other words, tell me why I shouldn't hire you. How would you handle that? Okay.
So typically the question would be, they will ask you first about your strengths and your weaknesses, right?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, so they'll ask you your strengths and your weaknesses. So I think everyone is all right to elaborate on their strengths. But instead of using the word weaknesses, you quickly spin it around and say areas of opportunities or areas of improvement. So you got to be witty as well in your interview, right? Not like SPM question, right? You just answer. They ask you a question, you answer. They ask you a question, you answer. So you got to spin it to work to your advantage. And you want to be able to share your areas of opportunities in a positive manner. For instance, right, if you are not good with time management, right, in an interview, you're not going to openly declare, I suck at time management, right? Zed, you got a red point in your box already. So you want to say things like, some of the things that I am constantly working on is my time management, right? And one of my challenges is sometimes I get so involved in the current task and so detailed in the current task because I want it to be perfect that I lose track of time on my other tasks. So what I'm doing currently is I have a timer and I make sure that I put on a 20-minute timer so that I spend on one task before I move on to the next task. The reason employers ask this question is they want to check in on your self-awareness. Do you know what are your areas of improvement? And the second point is they want to check in whether you are doing something about your flaws, right? Whether you are constantly working at developing yourself to be that professional that you are meant to be.
Okay. Following up from that, we've got a very funny question from Hansen. So he says, when asking for career aspirations, what do you think of the line, I want to take your position in 3 years? So obviously an attempt at a joke there. Is it okay to joke with the interviewer?
Okay, depending how much rapport you have built during the interview, right? But I would hold back in trying to taunt your interviewer, or even, putting in a little bit of sarcasm there. Yeah, you want that person's position, right? But you want to put it in a motivational way, in an aspiring, inspiring way, right? So you could say like, I have been following you on LinkedIn, and I noticed that you have so much achievements, and you have brought the brand from where it was before 2-3 years ago to where it is today, or you have brought the company from where it was before to where it is today. And I really hope that I can be that next person as well, to be able to turn around the organization or to bring value to the team.
Okay.
Yeah. So
much
always be professional.
Yeah.
Always
much better
be
than saying, I'm going to
tactful.
take your job in 3 years.
Yes, correct. Until you have built quite a rapport, right? Once you are hired, then you can say that.
Yeah. I want to thank everyone who's asked all these questions. Thank you so much. I think it's really made for some good knowledge, some good experience. Shereen, just from a personal point of view, I'm sure you've run hundreds of interviews. Can you think of any like the funniest or the strangest or the most awkward? Are there any an anecdote you could tell about the silliest interviews that you've sat through or been involved in?
Oh, all right. So there are so many. Okay, how do I pick one? Okay.
Have you told one at a dinner story and said, "Oh, a funny thing happened to me at work today"?
Yeah, there was one situation in which a candidate actually, it was coming from a candidate where the candidate actually asked about the dress code in the organization, right? So sometimes when you go to certain companies, when you apply for the job, and normally you go for an interview, tend to be very formal with your jackets and your covered shoes, etc. But in some organizations, the dress code is a little bit more flexible, or even a little bit more stylish, or they're very laid back. So the interviewee or the candidate was the one who asked, am I expected to dress down or to dress in that certain manner, because I don't have the budget to redo my wardrobe, okay? Or secondly, I'm not comfortable to dress that way. It takes a lot of courage for a candidate to be able to share this with the organization, right? And we also want to encourage people's personal expression in their dress codes, right? So we managed to talk and discuss about what's the suitable dress code that would be comfortable for the candidate.
No, fair enough. And I think especially for any school leaver or a new job seeker, these are really valid questions. Do I need to have 3 long sleeve shirts and 3 ties and whatnot, and 2 different pairs of shoes? It is very, very valid. And before we end off, and I'd like to end off where we started, you were talking about the first 90 seconds being a benchmark of when a decision is potentially made. This actually happened to me. Very quick anecdotal story. Finished university, a job interview, went to 5, 6, 7, 8 job interviews, landed up at the table of the creative director of Leo Burnett, who I had brought my CV and everything in my little briefcase. He sat down at the edge of the table, just chatted with me for about 10 minutes. And I hadn't even time to take out my CV. He was just chatting about what I enjoyed. And then he got up and said, start on Monday. And I was like, oh, don't you want to see what I've done in my CV? And he basically said, everything you learn in university is of no use in the real life. I just wanted to find out about you. And so that's why when you said that first 90 seconds, it struck a chord with me. So for those of you who probably maybe missed the beginning of this session, could you just recap about why an impression potentially is more important than any question or answer that could follow after that? Why is the first 90 seconds? potentially.
It's your first and lasting impression, right? And it's
Yeah.
1/3 of recruiters will have this first and lasting impression. Think about it, hundreds of people that they interview daily, and how could they make that decision to remember you, right? All CVs look the same, and everything's black and white on paper. How would I be able to remember who's who?
Exactly. You want to stick out from the crowd.
Yes,
Yes.
correct. In a natural, authentic way.
Exactly. Authentic. That's the word. Shereen, thank you so much for spending this time with us and sharing your knowledge, your thoughts, and your experience with us. Before we go, anything you'd like to say, anything we haven't covered in this session before we leave?
Well, the interview is a golden opportunity for you because, it's an opportunity for you to showcase yourself, be true to yourself, and don't forget, as much as you are being evaluated, you are also evaluating your future employer. So have fun with it.
With that, thank you so much, Shereen, and thank you to everybody who's watching on YouTube. If you were watching this live, share the link, share the link on your WhatsApp group. If you're watching this after the fact, share it as well. And I hope that you have learned as much as I have. I am now well prepared to go for any job interview. Thank you, Shereen.
All right.
And thank you, Job Street. And with that, everyone, please stay safe for heading into the endemic mode. And I do wish you all the best in your future job interviews as well. Take care. Bye. Good afternoon. Thanks, Shereen.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Harith. Take care. Bye-bye.